Hi everyone. It's now, I bought this machine in 2015, so it's now best part 3 years old. So although the videos say 2 years, it's 3 years. I finally found, if you've been with me since the beginning of this, I think in parts 1 and 2 of this series, I said there was a vicious kickback that this machine had, which was true and which I've put up with for quite a long time. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll change the coil and see if I can get rid of it that way. So I took it apart. I found the coil, which belongs inside this red cover here. Took it off to change it, and then I discovered that this coil is not symmetrical. So what's actually happened is they've assembled it incorrectly in the factory. It should be that way round in the machine, like that, with this plug lead coming out on the far side from the plug, so like that. And they had assembled it this way. And the reason it makes a terrific difference is that the firing coil is not symmetrical in this, which is in effect a sort of transformer. It's not symmetrical, so it makes a terrific difference if you turn it from that way round to that way round, because it changes the firing position. And of course it must be between there and there, it must be, I don't know, 10 degrees out. So it was a manufacturing fault. So if you assemble, and the problem is that there are no exploded diagrams, so even if I'd taken this off, this cover off, and there was an exploded diagram, I could have seen instantly that it had been assembled incorrectly. But since there's no exploded diagram to check with, it just never occurred to me that they'd just assembled the thing incorrectly in the factory. So that, if you do take this apart, that's the way around it goes. And if anybody else has had this terrible problem, that was the answer. So now it runs absolutely fine, and doesn't. It still kicks back a little bit, but nothing like it used to. You know, they're all 2 strokes when you're starting them. There's always a bit of a problem. But this now fires up really very satisfactorily. So that was the answer. So there you go. And now I've had another problem, which is showing itself up at the 3-year mark, which is a terrific vibration in the when I was using the extension and the chainsaw. And so I'll go ahead and show you how I sorted that problem out. Okay, here's the hedge cutter with foot extended with the chainsaw on the end, and I've had problems now with this part of the extension here going into heavy vibration. So we're going to take a quick look at that now. Okay, here we go with the chainsaw attachment, which is a problem. So inside here you've got a roller bearing, right, so nothing wrong there. The rest of this is, that belongs in there, of course. Then the rest of this has got 3 bush bearings inside it. So
here you go. Here's one of the bush bearings, just so you can see what they look like. Rubber on the outside, which squashes into the tube. It's an interference fit, so you're supposed to have one there, and one there. So what's actually happened is that this center bush bearing has crept up the tube. So this distance now is too big for the resonant frequency of this particular diameter shaft. Now this shaft is perfectly plain ground steel shaft. These fit in here, and bit of a wobble on them, but you know, they're okay. And I would guess these are just steel. Steel on a steel shaft, so they definitely need lubrication, which in fact is a bit hit and miss with these, because what they've done when they manufactured, they put the 3 bearings in, greased the shaft, and then slid the shaft in. Okay, and that relies on enough grease getting past this first bearing to grease the other 2. Well, in fact, these guys just are rather dry. So when you're putting it back together, you have to think of a way of actually greasing them properly, not like they've done it in the factory, which is just hit and miss. They've just greased the tube, stuffed it in, and of course most of the grease just gets left on the bearing. And if you look down here, when you have a look at these, you find most of the grease is just sitting on the first bearing. So these are actually too small. So this is actually 23 millimeters for the external part of these, and if you measure this in here, which you can do with these sort of calipers very roughly, I mean, it's not like using proper metal gauges, but you can do a rough idea of it, and that is 22.8. Well, that only leaves 0.2 of a millimeter for the interference fit on these tubes, which isn't nearly enough. I mean, you can stuff these in with your fingers. So you would need to have to bang these in quite hard in order for them to stay. And you can see this one just crept up here, and of course that's led to the vibration. So what I've got to do, this one here is still in its place. This one here was still in its place. But what I will do with the 2 I've taken out, I will think of a way of increasing their size. Actually, I'll probably just wrap them in a little bit of tape, increase them up to say, well, I'll find what fits in there easily, but my first guess will be, say 23.5 or 7. So I'll put 2 layers of tape on and then try whacking one in and see how jammy it is. If it jams reasonably nicely, then I'll call it a day and do that. Anyway, I'll go away and think of that, have a go at that, and see where we end up and come back. Okay, well here we are back again. What I've done is I cleaned the grease off and everything with the off this rubber bushing, Did that with universal paint thinners, and then I've put 2 layers of tape on, and as I thought, it's come out at 23.7, which gives an interference of about 0.8 of a millimetre, and you've now got to jam that in quite hard to get it to stay there. So now on the edge of this shaft, I don't know if you can see this, but this is one of the holes which the pin goes through to stop the shafts sliding in and out. And of course they've just drilled that and they've never bothered to deburr it. So what you don't want is the tape that you've put on there getting galled off by the fact that there's sharp bits of metal there. So what I'm doing now is with a metal scraper. You could probably do it with a file, or if you haven't got a scraper, just clean off that cooling, pull it out with your finger so that it doesn't go down the tube. So now we've got a nice metal tube there with, you know, it's not going to get yanked off. And in fact I will just put it opposite one of those little holes in the edge of the bushing so that it's less liable to get caught anyway. And then I'll just twist it in there to begin with. And we should be able to bang it in now with a nice solid piece of wood. And I don't know, maybe even too tight. We'll have to see how that actually goes. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's definitely not going to move from that position. So I'll get a piece of wood, mark it off to that length there, and whack it in, and we'll see how that goes. That's definitely not going to shift out of position, that's for sure.